Hello, Bosnian metalheads. This is Shamir from Destruction.
Hi, this is Gregor McIntosh from Ballenfire and Paradise Lost.
This is John Schaefer from Iced Earth.
This is Chuck Billy from Testament.
Well, this is Tom Gabriel Warrior, former guitar player and singer of Celtic Frost, now in Triptychon.
And you're listening to Radio Sarajevo and the best metal in town on TheAebyss.
Okay, here we are at Radio Sarajevo. This is TheAebyss, the show that's dedicated only to metal. And tonight we have Terry Butler with us on the phone, who played with Death most famously, and of course is now back with Massacre. How are you doing, Terry?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, like I said, I'm really honored to be talking to you. You know, because
thank you.
I grew up on those early Death records, and of course I'm familiar with the first Massacre album. And now you guys are back. Like what is it? 20 years later, more.
Yeah, it's about 22 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did that come up, man?
Well, it kind of came up casually. I was talking to Rick Ross in 2011. About doing a 20th anniversary tour of From Beyond. So we started talking, and he agreed that it would be a cool thing to do. So we contacted Bill Andrews. He wasn't interested to play drums anymore, but he gave us his blessing since it's his band. We never contacted Cam because, it would never work with him. He's too toxic. He's a cancer to be in a band with, and it's a long story, but the band would never function with him. So we had to find a singer and a drummer. So we found them in Ed Webb. He was in Diabolic. He's in Destined to Ruin. He's from Tampa. And Mikey Mazzanetto, the drummer, he was in a band called Pain Principle. So we did a rehearsal. Those two guys nailed it and sounded great. So we knew we had the band. So we just started playing some shows, and we got signed to Century Media. And, we wrote the album and recorded it, so here we are now.
Yeah. Well, Massacre is one of those really cult death metal bands from the early 90s, and the early demos, of course, in the mid-80s and late 80s. But, this is not the first time that the band comes back. There was also this one album that nobody likes to talk about, but you were definitely sure when... as I was saying, I don't know how much you heard, but I said that this band came back a couple of times, and once even with that album Promise, and who knows what happened there, but you were not really involved with that one. But you guys were certain that if you come back, you want to really continue where, not even From Beyond, but Inhuman Condition stopped, right?
Yes. The band kind of fell apart, and Rick and Cam wanted to do something on their own. That's why they recorded that Promise record. We didn't know about that record until '96 when it came out, but we don't even consider that part of Massacre's history, So basically, we wanted to take off from where Inhuman Condition stopped, and I think musically, that writing style is always part of us, so we didn't have to think about writing that way. It's just natural. So we just started writing, and we came up with 13 songs that are in the vein of From.
You just mentioned that when you just started writing, and then you got all those 13 songs done for the album. But let's go a bit back when you said that you guys contacted Bill, but you never even had the attention to contact Cam. You've been back like how many years? 3 years now? How did actually, these old school fans react that Cam is not part of the band?
Well, initially, we had some people that were, a few people didn't like it, mostly because Cam was creating a bunch of turmoil. He was plastering it all over Facebook and everything, pretty much talking a lot of shit about us. But, initially, there was a few people that didn't like it, but, once they saw us play live or they heard some stuff on YouTube or whatever, they understood that Ed is a hell of a singer, and he can sing amazing. So those kind of negative thoughts have gone away. I understand the diehard fans, they're going to want to hear Cam. But if they knew exactly the situation, they would understand that Cam cannot be part of Massacre, and we're just going to forge on without him.
Okay, and there's also one other character, one of the original members was Alan West. By the way, I know that at one point he was in a prison, but do you know what's happening with him now?
Yeah, he's a mess right now. He needs to get himself better, get himself in a good place. He's in prison right now, again, for various things. But, hopefully one day he can get himself straight and get to playing music again. But right now, he's in bad shape.
Yeah. All right. Well, Massacre is back. The album is coming out soon. But prior to that, you guys released that 2-track EP, and it's actually the 2 tracks that are also on the album, right?
Yes, they've been re-recorded for the album. They sound different. It's a different mix. And the song Back From Beyond actually has a different lead section in the middle, sounds different. So there is a difference between the two.
Oh, so it's not like that. If people have the EP, they should get the album and vice versa.
Yeah, because it's a different recording for both songs. Yes.
Okay, well, that original album that came out back in, 1991, was called From Beyond, and this one is called Back From Beyond. It's
kind of a play on words because it's been so long. It's been 22 years. If we put another album out in 93, we would never have called it Back From Beyond because it would have made no sense. But now, since we've been away for so long and now we're back, it just seemed logical to have the album called Back From Beyond. Obviously, the next record will have no connection between any of that stuff, so we thought it was just a perfect way to bridge those 22 years from 91 into 2014.
Yeah, well, obviously. But by the way, since it's been so long, what makes you think that Massacre and this style of death metal is still relevant on the scene? I mean, I'm very happy you guys are back, but what is it that makes you so confident? Like, let's invest money in this and let's push forward with it.
Well, I think there's a lot of the older bands that are still doing it well, such as, Napalm Death and Obituary and Asphyx, Grave, Carcass are back now. So there is room for our style of music. And I think because so many of the bands that come out nowadays are all technical and very fast and very blasting, that when they hear a band like Massacre, where you can understand the rhythms and you can feel what's going on and you can hear what's going on, you can remember it, and people are going to want to, when they're driving home from the show, they're going to remember those rhythms they just heard. So I think even though it's older sounds, it's going to sound new to some people just because they can understand it and digest it better.
Yeah.
I have nothing against the technical fast blast beat bands, but after a while, if that's all you hear, it gets stagnant and you want to hear something new. Even though it's old, it's going to sound new.
Yeah, and since it's been 22 years for you guys, you are new to the scene. I mean, you guys did play live even at that 70,000 tons of metal, or what's the name of that festival? But I assume you guys saw a lot of kids in the crowd, right? Not just old fans.
Yeah, we've seen the shows we've played. There's a good mix of kids and older people. I mean, some of the people that were into From Beyond, they have kids now, so they bring them to the shows. But the scene, especially in Europe, the scene is pretty open. I mean, they're not so close-minded sometimes. They can accept a lot of things. So you will see a mix of old and new, which I think is great because some of the kids now through YouTube and stuff, they can go back and watch some old shows of Massacre and get a feel of what it was like. And when they see us now, they can understand us. So
yeah, but when you guys came back together, and especially with Rick, who's the guitar player of the band, when you talked about the songs, how did that songwriting come about? Because I also know that you used to write a lot. I mean, the music-wise of this album? How did you approach it?
Well, we just started writing. We didn't tell ourselves, well, we have to write like it sounds like it's off of From Beyond, and we have to write this way. I mean, that's just our writing style. Rick wrote a lot of songs when he was in Mantis and Death. He wrote half of Leprosy. I wrote stuff on Spiritual Healing, and I wrote stuff in 6 Feet Under. I mean, that's just our style of writing. So we just wrote what we're familiar with, and it's just that style. We're influenced by Venom and Slayer and Motorhead and Bathory and Sutter Frost. So that's just what we're going to write like, and that's just how it sounds. And we didn't force ourselves to write any certain style. What you hear is just what we started coming up with.
Yeah. What about the lyrics, though? Did Ed do those, or is it also something that you pushed forward?
Ed did all the lyrics, but if any of us had any lyrics, we could submit it to him. We're all equals in the band. But he's a good lyricist. He's written lyrics for all the bands he's been in. Some of the lyrics deal with the H.P. Lovecraft kind of theme, but some of the other ones deal with like werewolves and serial killers and Vikings and whatever, kind of modern day movie kind of themes.
Okay. Well, from what I can tell, I mean, haven't you guys signed a contract with Century Media? The EP is out. The album is coming out in end of the month, right? 24th.
Yes.
So it seems to me like you guys are really back for good. Can you promise that?
Yeah, well, we're going to be back unless there's a zombie apocalypse or a meteorite hits the planet. We plan on being here for the long run,
All right. Well, yeah, I was just looking at the bands you were active with. I mean, you were a long time part of 6 Feet Under.
Yes.
Yeah. What happened there? Why did you quit that?
Well, the last few years it got kind of stagnant, and it wasn't a good environment to be in. But long story short, there's a friend of ours. There's a friend of Greg and mine and Steve's. His name's Curtis Beeson. He's a drummer of Nasty Savage. He had a brain tumor removed, and there was a benefit show for him to help pay his medical bills and get back on his feet. Well, 6 Feet Under agreed to play the show. We're going to headline the show, a benefit show. It was advertised for 2 months. 1 week before the show, Chris canceled the show. He said he didn't want to do it. Well, I mean, I could not overlook that. That's too much to overlook. So Greg and I quit. We're not going to be in a band with someone that thinks that way. So after 16 years, we said, forget it, we're out of here. And that's it, basically.
This is the first time I'm talking to you. I have to talk to you about Chuck and Death. I mean, you've been a part of really classical shit. I mean, Leprosy and Spiritual Healing are probably the best death metal albums ever. Not just in my opinion, but I
agree.
Yeah, so I mean, being part of that, you said that you did write stuff on Spiritual Healing. Most people think that Chuck wrote everything by himself. That's not entirely true.
That's not true. Whenever Rick was in the band and I was in the band, I think Chuck probably wrote most of Scream Butter Gore. There might be a few leftover riffs from the demo days. But on Leprosy, Rick wrote just about half of that album with Chuck. And for Spiritual Healing, James Murphy and myself, along with Chuck, wrote the music. It wasn't until after, Bill and I left that everything after that was pretty much Chuck writing it. There are 4 songs on Human that Bill and I was writing with Chuck that I have rehearsal tapes for. Those rehearsals are on the Spiritual Healing Deluxe Edition. So we continued to write, and we were writing Human. But, Bill and I left the band before the whole Human album came out. But, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but there are some, weird things that we never covered, and I never talked to you or anybody, but it was kind of strange, and it has to do with Massacre, that like the whole Massacre band besides Camley joins Death at one point. So and that definitely did put on hold everything that Massacre had planned. Or was Massacre dead by that time?
Well, the thing that happened was, Bill started Massacre in '84, and at that point it was kind of just cover songs from Slayer, Celtic Frost, and Hellhammer. But Bill got Cam into the band, and they did the first demo. It was all originals. And then Alan West left, and Bill got Rick in the band, and the second demo is like the From Beyond era kind of music. Well, we did some shows, and we shot the record around, and David Vincent, his supposed record label he had back in '86, wanted to sign Massacre. Well, that never happened. So the opportunity came up one day. Rick heard that Chuck was back in town, and he had no band. He had just recorded Scream Bloody Gore, moved back to Orlando. Chris Reifert stayed in San Francisco. So Rick just approached him and said, hey, what do you think about us joining forces, Bill and Terry and I coming over to Death, and, we'll be in Death. So we tried out, we did a rehearsal, and it sounded great. So basically, 3 of us left Massacre and went to Death. Well, Rick had already been in Death, but now he's back in Death, and Bill and I were in Death for the first time, Then after we all left Death, whatever, we went, started Massacre up again. And it was just funny that because of Bill and I being in Death, everyone that was in Massacre on the From Beyond album had been in Death. It's just kind of a funny situation.
Yeah, well, but you guys did leave a mark on the scene. But since we talked about that great thing, we should also cover the bad thing, and that's that infamous Fuck Chuck tour that is actually almost ancient history, but some people still remember it. I mean, what was that?
Yeah.
What happened there, and why?
What happened with that is the second leg of a spiritual healing tour. We did a tour with Devastation and a couple months off. Then we did a tour with Carcass and Pestilence for the whole United States. We had 1 week off, and we were to go to Europe with Creator for a 9-week co-headlining tour. It was all set up. Everything was already written in stone. It was, going to happen. Well, when we came home, we decided to take a few days off and rehearse to get a new set list going for the European tour. Well, Chuck went AWOL. He went missing. He wouldn't come out of his house. We couldn't get a hold of him. Then his mother told us that he didn't want to go to Europe, but we had signed all these contracts and everything. So, we were young kids, so Bill and I thought at the time the best thing to do was to go to Europe, to fulfill these contracts. And Chuck wanted to stay home. And, that's what we did. The booking agent called and asked us if we could do it, and we said yes. So, Creator's management, Drakkar, they contacted us and asked if we could pull it off, and we said yes. So our booking agent, TCI, out of New York at the time, contacted Chuck and his mother and his mother's power of attorney. So we drew up a little contract saying that we're going to go to Europe without Chuck, and Chuck signed it and everything. So that's what we did. We toured Europe without Chuck, and it sucks because I wish he would have went. It would have been great. We were completely catered to. We were treated like kings. But he had something going on mentally. He was kind of getting disillusioned with death metal. He kind of wanted to do more stuff like that, Control Denied kind of stuff. And, so he was getting kind of sick of death metal. And he was in a weird place. But, we had something we had to do. We had to go and do that tour. And we did it. And, we had the drum tech, Louie. He sang. He's a drummer for Devastation. He came on the road to be a drum tech. So I told him at the airport, you're going to be the singer. And I told Walt, he was going to be the second guitar player anyhow. He was our sound man. I said, you going to play guitar? So we did it, and we pulled it off, and it was good shows. The crowds loved it, but obviously it would have been great if Chuck would have been there, but for whatever reasons he chose not to be, and that's history, and so we just all had to move on from that,
Yeah. Was that also one of the reasons that you guys left Death, or did he actually throw you guys out, or what happened?
I mean, we knew by what we did that this is going to most likely lead to us leaving the band, and we heard through the grapevine through our booking agent that Chuck wanted to come on tour after 3 weeks, and everyone from Creator and their road crew and everyone was really upset with him for doing this, because it almost canceled the tour. These dudes, their life depends on these tours, that's how these guys make money, and so it wasn't a good environment, so the booking agent basically told him, dude, you don't need to come on tour because it's not a good environment for you to be in, and he still wasn't at a good place mentally. So at that stage we knew right then that he's going to be pissed, so we're not going to be in Death anymore. So it kind of lit a fire under his ass, because he got mad that we were over there without him after he got out of his haze, after the fog left his brain, and that's when he called the Cynic guys. He's like, hey, I need a band to write this next album, you guys willing to do it? And they said yes. And they didn't last too much longer after that anyhow themselves, but
yeah,
it's just part of history that if I could go back, maybe I would break into Chuck's house and meet him face to face, but he was hiding and we couldn't talk to him, so that's just one thing that happened, and just
yeah,
it's just a chapter in the long history here about everything. So
yeah. But did you guys reconcile with him prior to his death?
Bill had talked to him some, and I was able to get a message to him, but I had never been able to talk to him face to face since then, and that sucks, because I actually do think about the guy almost every day. We had great times. It was a great environment to be in. We were writing some killer music and doing a lot of cool things that helped out bands later on. So and I still talk to him in my mind every day. I just I still wish he was here, but unfortunately he's not.
Greetings, mortals. This is Danny from Cradle of Filth.
Hello out there, this is Andy B. Frank, a Brainstorm.
Hey, this is Tim Ripper Owens. This is Stu Block from Eister.
This is Martin from Asphyx.
This is Devin Townsend, and you're listening to The Abyss on Radio Sarajevo.